After the events of the last episode of the first season, which you can check out in the pinned link in the comments, Momo Ayase is being chased by a group of men, but suddenly she finds an opening to escape. However, before she can fully leave the area, one of the men grabs her, slowly closing in with a malicious grin on his face. But just then, the house begins to collapse toward them. Seeing this, the man decides to let go of her and quickly flees. Out of nowhere, Grandma Turbo pops in, relieved to see an old temple crumbling into ruins. Momo is left completely confused and asks what she's doing there. Grandma Turbo explains that she overheard Seiko talking about where Momo was headed and decided to sneak into her backpack to tag along. Meanwhile, some bathers emerge from the rubble and start complaining about what just happened. Suddenly, a group of men from the Commercial Association shows up at the scene. They begin searching for someone to blame for the collapse. They quickly point to the group of bathers, assuming they're the ones responsible for the mess. At another moment, Momo thanks Grandma Turbo for helping her, but Grandma Turbo makes it clear she didn't do it to help her. The conversation continues, and Momo asks how Gigi's house was, since she didn't get to see anything. Grandma Turbo explains that his house has absorbed too much human blood. Meanwhile, Gigi and Okarun are staring at the hole in the wall, completely perplexed, unsure of what's going on the other side. Gigi asks what they should do, and Okarun replies that he doesn't know either. He suggests they wait for Ayase to return home, because they could end up complicating things even more if they rush in alone. Suddenly, they're startled by the sound of the doorbell ringing from the front door. Okarun suggests Ayase must have returned. Gigi rushes to the door, relieved, thinking everything is fine. But as soon as he opens it, he's met with 3 strange women staring at him with a sinister look. To make things worse, Gigi invites the women inside to eat something, but one of them notices him just staring. She asks him to join them at the table to eat some snacks. Gigi politely declines. The woman notices the respect in the boy and says that this is because she's the reason he's not paying rent. After saying that, the 3 women continue throwing in his face that if it weren't for them, he would have no roof over his head. They demand a kind of perpetual gratitude from him. Meanwhile, Okarun pulls Gigi aside and asks what's really going on here. Gigi reveals that the house he's living in is being offered to him as a favor until his parents return from the hospital. He explains that the women are part of the Kito family, the property owners. Upon hearing this, Okarun remembers the damage they caused to the house's wall and starts to worry. However, Gigi says they can just tell them they don't know what happened to the wall, and the women will drop it. Suddenly, one of the women turns back to him and complains that Gigi disappeared without telling her anything. Then, Gigi tries to change the subject, saying he needed to go pick up Okarun, a friend he wanted to visit. Even after hearing this excuse, the woman remains suspicious, believing Gigi is hiding the real reason for his disappearance. She then asks if he thought about bringing a medium to the house, just suggesting the idea. The other women get irritated with Gigi and tell him not to worry about it. After all, they assure him that the house is free of ghosts. Gigi tries to smooth things over, saying that Okarun doesn't even look like a medium. And upon hearing this, one of the women points a gun at the 2 of them and says she has a hunting license. She then mentions that she knows all too well how unfortunate accidents happen in the mountains. For example, she could end up accidentally shooting someone if they step in front of her while she's hunting an animal. Damn, this old lady's completely out of her mind. Is she crazy? And hearing those words while the gun is pointed at him, Gigi begins to feel the threat in her voice. He then says that even though she has a hunting license, pointing a gun at someone will bring her legal trouble. As soon as Gigi finishes saying this, a police officer arrives at the house and is confronted with the most criminal scene he's seen that day. An old woman simply pointing a gun at Gigi. However, he decides to turn a blind eye to the Kito family's crimes. Suddenly, more members of the Kito family enter the house. One of the men goes up to Gigi and asks what he did while he was gone. Gigi once again gives the same excuse, saying he went out with a friend. But as soon as the man hears this flimsy excuse, he tells Gigi to stop lying, saying he hates people who lie. And as for Okarun, Gigi says he's just a friend. The man then asks Okarun what Gigi's favorite soccer team is to confirm if they are really friends. Under pressure, Okarun decides to guess any team and says that Gigi supports Saint Germain. As soon as he says this, Okarun starts sweating cold, waiting to see what the man's reaction will be. The man then smiles at them, saying that Okarun really knows what the boy's favorite team is. Suddenly, one of the women turns back to Gigi, pressing him again, asking when the girl who was with them will return. Meanwhile, Ayase goes to the Sushinoko temple and is welcomed by the receptionists, who led her inside. There, Ayase approaches the Tsushinoko and finds something very strange lying on the table. The receptionist confirms that it is indeed the Sushinoko. Additionally, she explains that the people from that area used to idolize a giant snake that lived inside a volcano. It was said that when this snake felt hungry, the volcano would erupt. As a result, the people were forced to offer a child as a sacrifice to the snake in order to end the creature's hunger and make the area safe again. Man, seriously, how could this really have existed in human culture? Anyway, right? And this way, people managed to prevent the volcano from erupting for over 200 years. After hearing this story, Ayase asks why they call that thing on the table Sushinoko. Then, a man explains that this was just a marketing stunt because his father said that this way they'd attract even more tourists to their temple. He goes on to tell the story of the giant snake. He explains that, in fact, it was a misinterpretation by humans that led them to sacrifice children unnecessarily. After leaving the place, Ayase decides to go straight to Gigi's house. But as soon as she arrives, she finds the two boys tied up and thrown on the floor. The woman on the sofa then says that they already have the 3 offerings ready, so they can proceed with the ritual in the name of the serpent god. Upon hearing this, Ayase begins attacking the enemies. But suddenly, one of the men grabs her from behind and strikes her on the head, making her dizzy, on the verge of passing out. The man starts laughing at the situation and tells Ayase to calm down. Suddenly, Grandma Turbo pops out of Ayase's backpack and yells at the man, making him slip on a bottle and fall to the ground. Grandma Turbo starts complaining about what's happening, saying she only wanted to take a nap without anyone waking her up with all the noise. As for Ayase, she thanks her again for the help and asks Grandma Turbo to continue helping her fight off all these people. But before she does, Ayase asks who these people are. However, Ayase admits that she doesn't know them either. Then, the men approach Ayase again, and she enters defense. The men try to calm her down, saying they don't intend to do anything bad to her, but she maintains a firm stance, telling them to stay away and leave the house. But instead, they attack her even more fiercely. During the fight, one of the women uses one of her most powerful abilities to attack Ayase, making her fly and crash through the wall of the house. The other members of the Kito family start cheering for the attack and explain that the mother of the family is the strongest among them. Against the woman, Ayase notices that she's using a mysterious telekinetic power during the fight. She then asks what that was, but Ayase simply gets up from the blow, avoiding the stones that flew from her fall. As for the woman, she says that Ayase is here to ruin their festival, which would ultimately stop the ritual for the serpent god from being completed, resulting in the destruction of the village. Therefore, Ayase is seen as their enemy. And upon hearing these accusations, Ayase fires back at the woman, telling her that she shouldn't invade someone else's home and destroy everything. She then demands that everyone leave immediately. The woman, remembering that they need to keep the village intact if they want to continue enjoying the hot springs, responds that in order to do so, the serpent god must remain well fed with the offerings they make. Therefore, she believes the Kito family is responsible for ensuring the safety and integrity of the village so far. She goes on to explain that the house they are in was once the old altar where people came to make their sacrifices. Although the appearance of the place has changed over time, it remains the same altar for the offerings. During the conversation, Ayase begins to be sucked into the ground. The woman deduces that the serpent god must be starving, and that's why it is starting to send curses to the village. As Ayase struggles, using her telekinetic powers to try and escape, she's stopped by the Kito family, who won't let her leave. Just then, Okarun rushes to her, extends his hand to rescue her, but in the process, he loses his balance and falls into the quicksand. Looking back up at the ceiling, they realize the hole has closed, and now they're trapped in the place with no way out. Meanwhile, Gigi loses his balance and falls into an abyss, and suddenly, the serpent god appears in the room, greeted by the Kido family, who are thrilled to see it. The woman offers Gigi, Momo, and Okarin as the next sacrifices. Seeing that this so-called serpent god is real, Ayase is shocked, as she believed it was just a myth. Then, Grandma Turbo explains that the creature is actually a kuragari. At this, Okarin recalls a supernatural magazine he used to listen to, which mentioned that the kuragari is a Mongolian deathworm, a type of man-eating worm. Meanwhile, the woman continues to encourage the so-called serpent god to consume the 3 offerings they've brought. Ayase tries to warn her that the creature they're serving isn't a god as they think, but rather a worm that devours people. Suddenly, the worm begins to eat anyone who comes near it. At this moment, Ayase and the others take the opportunity to escape, but just then, Gigi notices Okarin and Ayase lying on the ground, holding their heads, and tries to help them, asking what happened. But suddenly, Okarin transforms and starts charging at Gigi. My friends, there's a huge worm underneath the house. I can't wait to see where this goes. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want episode 2 of season 2 here on the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.